Hey there, Shane Larrabee here with FatLab Web Support, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the urgent matters that clients bring to you and the concept of time and project management and how they sometimes just collide to be just a massive nightmare. Talking about how everything seems to come together at once, you know what I mean? So in our world, and I'm sure it's not unique, it always seems like everything hits at once. You know, the client who called you 6 weeks ago and is wants to get a project going. Well, they've got to plan it out. They got to do their content. They got to get their design elements, whatever it may be. And then there's the project you've been planning for months. And then there's the regular day to day support. And then all of a sudden, like you don't hear from these people, and then boom, they all kind of hit at once, and they're all telling you how important their project is, and it's urgent now. It wasn't a couple weeks ago, but now it's urgent that we get it up. And a lot of times this urgency is completely made up by the client. Let's just be absolutely honest. When clients say I need this done in a week, it might be an application that we're updating, meaning the old application works just fine, and maybe they just want their new fancy toy, or they have this idea, right? And so they want to get it moving. I get it, right? Like you want to move on your new marketing idea and so on, but there's not a real date involved. There's not a real urgency involved. And so that's when things get, tough, because why am I being, yelled at, so to speak, the client saying, what's the status? What's the status? Can you speed it up? Can we have it Tuesday instead of Wednesday? I need it by end of week. And you're looking at this thing going, you don't really need this on Tuesday, Wednesday, end of week, or whatever it is. It's a completely made up timeline. Now, Graham, we work for clients who have deadlines. We work for excuse me. We work for political clients, and of course, there's an election date. We Anything done past election date is not going to matter. In fact, some things, especially when it comes to donation generating campaigns, stuff within a few days of election date isn't going to count. So we get that. We work for other clients who have trade shows. Well, you can't change the trade show date. We have other clients who have various deadlines, and they're legit. They're totally legit deadlines. But we have a lot of clients who just kind of make these up. And so right now I'm thinking a lot about this. Like, how do you deal with this kind of pressure? This is the kind of pressure that can burn a hole in your stomach. This is the kind of pressure that can lead to burnout, because you want to please the client, right? You want them to be happy with your services. So we deal with a few different clients here. We have the clients where everything is urgent, and absolutely everything, no matter what it is, they either mark it urgent, or in their description of the task, they'll say this needs to be done ASAP, or it needs to be done as soon as possible, and so on. And this very much impacts our workflow, my personal stress level, and so on. So I think that's kind of a personal communication skills that one has to develop over time, I guess. And you have to educate clients to how things work and so on. And the reasonable ones will figure it out over time. That's why long-term clients are awesome, because they kind of learn how you work, you learn how they work, and so on. There's the client with the endless feedback loop, meaning you believe the project is done, so you deliver it. So you're ready to move on to the next project. And they hit you back. One more thing. You get it done. Now you're ready. You're going to start that next project you promised another client you'd work on, and they send it back. One more thing. And I'm not talking about bug fixes or things you should have done in the first round. I'm talking about things they just thought of, or things they tested and maybe they didn't work the way they thought they were going to. And so they want to change. And then, of course, they're like, hey, can you get this done by end of day? And so on. So, and there's a mentality here where I think, okay, if I do this one task, I can move that project off my plate. If I do that task, I can move that project off my plate. But there's the endless loop client who can suck up an entire day in unplanned revisions, and so that's always that's a challenge. And then there's the client who is always, everything is end of day. can you have this done by end of day? This needs to be done by end of day, with zero regard to whether what time it is, what else you might have going, or what else they've even asked that you've gotten that you need to get done for them. So if you get an end of day request at 9 a.m., that's one thing. But if you get an end of day request at 4, 5, what are you going to do there? So it's dealing with these people and kind of educating them on the timing and so on, and then occasionally actually getting that done for them, because again, sometimes there are urgent issues there. But you know what, clients, I guess if they knew what we knew, we wouldn't have jobs, meaning they don't know how long it takes to build a web application or to patch a bug or to add a new feature to an application and so on. They just know they need it for their marketing campaign, their communications campaign, their political campaign, their donation or member renewal campaign, or their small business sales event. Like, that's all they know. So there's an education job that falls on us, and we've got to find the reasonable client kind of to meet in the middle. But if you're not careful, this bandwidth, which is limited, there's only so many hours in a day, and you, as a developer, you can only type so much and so fast. And even if you have a big team around you, they too have the same number of hours in a day and may not work the same time slots you do. And you know what? You can't really have two developers working on the exact same thing at a time. That doesn't double the speed necessarily. So you've got to kind of figure that out, and you got to do it without killing yourself. When in my 20s, I'd pull the all-nighters, and I would just work. And you know what? I'm older now, and I've I've gone through burnout a few times now. I've had a couple ulcers, and I'm done with that. I'm just telling them how it is. No, we cannot get that done by end of day. However, we will work on it. We at FatLab, we actually have a what we call DevOps. They work overseas, so I can put something in the evening, and I'll say we'll probably have that by late morning or so on. So again, depending on your team, your capabilities, or so on, you got to figure out how to deal with those kind of urgent people, the end of day people, and so on. Figuring out what's truly time sensitive and urgent is always tough, because again, I talked about how these clients, everything's urgent, right? Everything's time sensitive. And so it actually says in our contract, it was my little stab at this. And no one's ever actually laughed at it, but I thought it was funny. And that is, it literally says, we will react to urgent matters as quickly as possible. That's like outages, security issues, and so on. But it literally says in our contract, we have a sentence that says, your idea of urgent may not be our idea of urgent. And so you have to kind of define those items, and you've got to define them for the client so that they understand. There's also there's the client who kind of demands the constant updates, how's it going, so on. And I've been very careful not to allow my clients to have my Slack. I know a lot of people do that, but the problem with that is that it's literally like, pay attention to me, and you get enough clients doing that, and that is an impossible scenario. At least for me, I become overwhelmed with the number of dings, and this client's saying I need an update, and this client's saying they need an update, and I'm thinking, I don't even have time to work on this because I'm just updating everybody, and so. That's all about setting expectations with the client and saying, listen, I will provide an update at end of day or end of week or whatever the project calls for, not allowing them to drive your communication. I think it's very important for the web developer and the agency owner or the studio owners to drive the communications plan. If the client drives the communications plan, you're going to be jumping continuously. And that's hard. It's stressful. You will lose sleep. And I know so many of us do it, and I'm guilty of doing it all the time. But you got to remember that. Just do not allow them to control that communications. There's nothing worse than getting to the end of the day, getting a ton of work done, and then realizing you owe 4 updates on stuff that, you know, the update is just we're working on it and we're on schedule and so on. Because obviously that's not what they want to know. They want to see a checklist where you're like, this is done, this is done, this is done. You can see this and so on. So anyway, it's all kind of about managing those comms. So anyway, dealing with these pushy clients, and we've been dealing with a few this week that have just really had me thinking about this. And I think the deal is you just absolutely have to have clear communications, and it has to be honest, meaning you can't promise things at the end of the day that you don't think you can deliver on. You can't jump just because the client says it's urgent. You need to evaluate that. Using effective prioritization is incredibly important here. Client education is also incredibly important, and this takes time, especially when you have a new client. You got to teach them how you communicate this and that. And I think it's your job to tell them how the communication is going to go. And that's part of the client education thing. And the longer the client's with you, the easier that will become. And then there's, what do you do about that problematic client? And, I think, I think this week I've identified a client that I'm going to let go. It's just not worth it for us anymore. So I don't think there's anything wrong with letting a client go. I remember when I first started going out on my own, people would always say, oh, it's, working on your own is freedom because you get to choose who you work for. But you often get stuck in this place where you're like, I don't choose who I work for. I work for whoever cuts me a check. And you're scared to lose that money, no matter what a problem client they might be. They're paying your bills. And, I have a family and a kid in college, and that takes money. So the client I'm going to let go here is actually worth maybe, I don't know, 10, 20, $30,000 a year in some years. But it's not worth it. Things have changed over the course of the relationship. The team has changed, their demands have changed, their timelines have changed. And I think it's okay to say we can't keep up or we don't want to keep up. That's probably the more important thing there. But again, from a business perspective, you have to take a look and evaluate that and whether or not that's something you can afford. Maybe you don't let that client go today, but you let them go in a month or so after you build up part of that replacement business. So to wrap this up, I think I've just been giving a whole lot of thought to kind of the client demands and dealing with those and how that works into project management and how project management plans seem to blow up and so on. And I think this happens all over the place. Definitely not one of those gurus to sit here and explain how we run the most amazing project management system. In fact, we don't. It's a very frustrating process. Anytime I try and put together a plan, the client will blow it up. So, so anyway, this video is probably more about sharing my frustrations and talking out how dealing with pushy clients, demanding clients, and how those communications go. I think it's important to kind of sit down every once in a while and take a look at your business and see what's happening inside of it. See the good clients, the ones that are making you money. See the clients that are taking up your time. Those are typically not the same. So that that's a worthy exercise in and of its own. So I've been rambling long enough, so I will end this video here. But good luck with managing your projects. Thank you.